Hey, what's up guys, this is Dave from NetcodeGuides.com, and today's video is going to be about player roles and building a team, okay? And how to properly build a team. So that's probably what I'll title it, how to properly build a team. Anyways, in this video we're going to discuss why some teams, you get them and you get these great players and it doesn't work out. We saw it with Astounded Dragons. You know, they had all these great players, they were deemed like a super team and things like that, and it just didn't work out. And it's because when building a team, it's actually very complicated, because you need people to be comfortable, most importantly. Comfort is by far the most important thing that players need to have in order to perform well. And where does comfort come from? Well, comfort mainly comes from consistency in playing a certain way in a certain style, because throughout the chaotic LAN environment, the yelling, the screaming, you know, that you're constantly hearing from outside sources and even from your team because of the loud venues and things like that, say ESWC and whatnot. So throughout this chaos, you need to have people who are comfortable in playing their spots and playing their roles in order for them to succeed and properly play and play to the best of their abilities. So comfort is by far the number one thing. Now, how do you achieve that comfort is the question. Well, generally players are comfortable in the spots that they're used to playing. First off, the spots that they're used to playing. So for instance, if you have a guy that plays port side and he's been playing here for 5 years, he's going to be comfortable here, right? He's played against these teams, he's played against Navi, he's played against, you know, Virtus Pro, he's played against NIP, he's played against Envy, he's played against all these teams, so he knows how to react to what they do. And because of that, he's very comfortable, right? And not only against those teams, but against other teams as well. He knows when he can be aggressive, he knows when he needs to fall back, he knows what, you know, his teammates are capable of at the other spots, he knows exactly how to react to every scenario. And in Counter-Strike, there's so many different scenarios and so many different options that happen. And as soon as something happens, right, as soon as just one smoke is thrown, for instance, say they smoke off here, that's going to cause a reaction for your Arch player, for your Porch player, and to your Halls player, and also generally for the terrorists who are throwing that smoke. And you need to know how to react to every single one of these scenarios that could happen. And there's so many of them. There's so many of them. And the only way you're going to know how to react to them is if you play a spot consistently and over a long period of time. And we can even go much deeper than that, right? Because say NIP throws a smoke here. Well, when NIP throws a smoke here, that could mean something completely different than when Navi throws a smoke here, than when Envy throws a smoke here, than when Virtus Pro throws a smoke here. So yeah, you might get comfortable here. It's in Porch after you play this spot for, you know, a few days or a week or a couple of weeks or whatever, but usually it takes a very, very long time to play this spot and know what to do and how to react to everything versus every team that you're going to play against at its top level. Because all those reactions that you make versus a team like NIP might not be the same reaction that you want to make versus a team like NVS and versus a team like Virtus Pro and Navi, etc., etc. There's some teams that are willing to go through smokes, for instance. If you play against TSM and there's a smoke right here, that doesn't mean they're not going to go through it, because TSM will just jump through the smoke. Sometimes Virtus Pro will too. If you play a team like NIP, they usually don't jump through many smokes. If you play, you know, so maybe if you see that smoke, you just run all the way to here because you know they're going Arch, and you play Arch side with your teammate, and all of a sudden you have two people Arch side. So there's so many different variables, right? And that comfort is so key to getting people to play properly. And different players are going to take a different, you know, are going to have different speeds when it comes to getting comfortable at their positions. This is why I always tell people when I watch their demos and when I'm trying to tell people, you know, how to play or giving them tips and things like that, I try to tell them to develop a skill set and develop a role that they could consistently improve upon and have a skill set that they can give to a team. Now, that means that's going to be much easier for you to be recruited to a team, right? If you know you play Porch on Inferno, you know you play, you know, mid to B on Dust 2, you know you play, etc., etc. You know you play all these spots, whether you're a solo site player or a rotator or whatever, or you're an opper and you play most of the op spots. If you develop a skill set, it's very easy to plug you into a team and have that team perform at a high level right away, right? So Okay, so now that we discussed why comfort is so important and also why it's so difficult to achieve that, to get everybody comfortable and get them real comfy and playing their spots and things like that, let's discuss why some of these teams just haven't worked. So for instance, Astana Dragons was deemed like a super team, for instance. They had Edward, they had Markaloff when they left Navi to join them. Then they had, I believe, Adren, Angel, and Doja. Now, when they made this team, the player who suffered by far the most was Doja, or Dosia, whatever. I think it's Doja though. Doja's stats went down a lot, and he really wasn't playing very well. And really, the reason for that is because he just wasn't comfortable. Every one of his spots, nearly every single one of them, was taken by Edward. He played Halls on Inferno. Edward moved to Halls on Inferno. Edward's the long guy on Dust 2. Doja was the long guy on Dust 2. Nuke, Doja played Ramp. Now Edward's playing Ramp, etc., etc. He just basically had all of his spots that Doja's comfortable with. And a lot of these players that you're going to see at the pro level especially need their spots. Okay? It's just how it is. Like me, on Inferno, I could play art side, port side, but I'm mainly a banana rotator, right? I really don't know how to play like other spots. On Dust 2, I can't play mid to B worth shit. I can't play B worth shit. I play car or I play A, rotator. Those are my spots. I have 2 spots that I play on that map. On Nuke, I play rotator or I could play outside. That's it. Like I have my spots that I could play, and that's it. And that's what I offer to my team, and that's the spots I'm going to play on pretty much any team I join, because I know how to play those spots. And if I went to a different team and had to play a different spot, it would be difficult for me, and I'd have to take time to learn, and it would be a process that might take months because of the issues I discussed earlier, where not only do you have to know what each individual team is doing and how to react to them, but you have to know in general how to react to things. Okay, so we saw why Astana didn't work, and it's because of those reasons, right? They put together this roster that had all these great players, but none of those players were comfortable in the spots that they had to play in. So then they had to resort to, they ended up kicking certain players, and now they have the team they have today. But it's obviously a much different team because it didn't really work out. Now let's take a team like Envious. Now a lot of people with Envious were calling that a lot of people want Kenny S for Smiths. But the thing that would happen is, if they have Kenny S, is that Kenny S is a player where all of your playstyle is going to revolve around Kenny. If you want Kenny to perform like he does, and for him to be comfortable. For Kenny to be comfortable, he needs to basically have no leash, he needs to be super aggressive, he needs to be the focal point of the team. That's his comfort level. That's how it is. That's the type of player he is. Now, that would severely hinder, I'm telling you, it would severely hinder all the 4 other guys on the team. NBK, Kiyoshima, Shox, and Happy. It would completely change how they play, because all of a sudden, they're not relying on their teammates trade killing and playing their style that they play on now. They're mainly revolving their game around Kenny S. Where they have Smiths, and now Smiths, who's another player who you don't have to, you know what Smiths is going to give you. You know how he's going to play a spot. You know he's going to be consistent, and you know what he's going to give you as a player. And you know he's not going to try to be the main star and the focal point of everything. So that's why, like, a lot of people say, well, you should pick up Kenny S for Smiths or something like that. And, I think everybody in their right mind would say, yeah, Kenny S probably, maybe even the best player in the game. And he also is probably much more skillful than Smiths. Well, I don't know about much more, but I think he is more skillful than Smiths. So, even though he's probably the better player and he's probably more skillful, his impact is probably going to be detrimental to the rest of the players, to all 4 of the other players on that team. All of a sudden, they're going to feel a little bit hamstring. They're not going to be playing their normal way. They're going to be playing all off Kenny instead of playing all off each other and playing as a team more so, right? So it's going to be a huge difference, and nobody would be comfortable. Honestly, I can almost guarantee you, if that team happened or Kenny was with Smiths, nobody would be comfortable for many, many months. And it would take them, I have no doubt that after quite a few months they could get comfortable, but it would take them a long time, and it would really set their team back from where it is now a good while. So that's why I don't think a team like that would necessarily work, because comfort is just so important. The next thing we're going to discuss is how to build a team, because most maps you could follow this same formula. You want two guys that are good at playing solo sites, so to speak. What a solo site is, I think there's basically two on every map, and these I call them like your anchors, right? So on Inferno, it's going to be the guy that's playing B, and then the guy that's playing Halls or Pit, right? These are like your anchors. Probably not call them solo site players because there's really only one solo site in each map. But you're going to have two anchors almost on every map, right? On Mirage, it'll be the guy playing A, always A, dedicated A, either under Balk, site, or spawn. On Inferno, it's Pit and B. On Dust 2, it's Pit and B. On, let's see, what other maps? On Nuke, it's kind of like Ramp, I guess, and Outside. It's a little bit different on Nuke, but etc. etc. You guys get the point, right? Usually this guy doesn't move around that much on CT side. He's usually the last guy to rotate for his respective bomb site. And that's kind of what it is. So you want two of those guys. And usually these guys, a lot of the time, are going to be the guys that, and you can mix it up, right? Like, these guys don't have to be the same guys on every map. Like, sometimes it doesn't work that way, but generally, a lot of the time, it does. So a lot of the time, these guys are like your lurkers. They're the really patient players. In NA, this is like your Hiko and your Swags, right? Hiko plays B on Dust 2, or he could play Long. He could play Halls on Inferno, or he could play B on Inferno, right? Like, Hiko would be really good at Halls. I don't even know if he's played it before, but he'd be really good at it. Swag, same thing, plays B or Pit on Inferno. Dust 2, he could play Long or B, etc. etc. These are like your anchors, right? Your patient players, and generally your slower players and your lurkers. When they rotate, they check every corner. They're very careful about being lurked on. They're really good in one-on-one gun battles, etc. etc. And they're also really good at just spraying people down. Because a lot of the time, 3 people come out of B, 3 people come out of Halls, etc. etc. So yeah, these guys are like, in my opinion, the most important guys when it comes to CT side. For sure. And on T side, it's a little bit different. We'll talk about the guys that take map control and lurk and stuff like that. But on CT side, these guys are, in my opinion, the most important guys because they're usually like not only the last line of defense, but a lot of time the first line of defense. And if they die, usually very, very crucial parts of the map are taken. So you want them to be able to frag the fuck out. And that's why Hiko and Swag are pretty much the most important players in North America, in my opinion. Although it's tough, them and the leaders, and also Skadoodle. So I don't know. I guess everybody's really important. But anyways, okay. So going on, you have 2 of those players almost always, right? Almost always. Then you're gonna have players that play spots where they have like a rotator or contact players on CT side. Now things get a little fishy. Everybody else has to have like certain roles, right? Your Opper, he's going to play outside on Nuke. He's going to play Artside on Inferno. He's usually going to play A on Dust 2 or move around a lot, and then you'll play off him, etc., etc. So then you have an Opper. So you have those 2 players. You have an Opper. Then you have 2 riflers, and usually these are the guys who are not afraid to die, and they're going to play in spots where they're going to be like Porch, B rotator on Inferno, things like that. They're probably going to put up a lot of deaths, but they can't be afraid to die or anything like that. So that's usually how you play on CD side. Now let's talk about T side, okay? Because T side's probably a little bit more important. CT side, as long as you have those 2 anchors and you have that hopper, the other 2 players can usually mix and match and find their spots pretty easily. Because most of the time those players could play a couple different spots. Now let's talk about T side. So on T side, you have your guys that maintain map control. It's usually 2 on each map. These are guys that go B on Dust 2, or excuse me, tunnels on Dust 2 and long out Dust 2 on a default. On Inferno, they're going to be Banana and Halls on a default. On Mirage, they'll usually be like underpass area, B halls, making sure nobody's pushing, and then like A halls and things like that, or A ramp, maintaining map control. These guys maintain map control, and usually have 2 of them on a map. Okay, and then after that, you go into a default and you hit things together. These guys are usually like the last guys in. There's a lot of map control, a lot of lurking out of these guys. Sometimes if they're going beforehand and they're the first one in, they're usually going in one-on-one battles and things like that. So again, players that do that are like Hiko, Swag, going into Europe, we got guys like Happy, guys like Doja, guys like Edward, guys like let's see, trying to think. You know, Get Right, obviously. You know, these guys, these lurkers, these map control guys, these guys are playing off the team. The majority of the team is doing something. They have a goal. They're off by themselves, and they're capitalizing off of what their teammates are doing, right? And what they see, and how the team's adjusting to their rotates and things like that. And they're basically playing off everybody else. And these are very unique players, and it's very difficult to have these players and find these players who are really good at their jobs. And the reason it's so difficult to find these players that are really good at their jobs is because they have to have a mental map of all 10 players and what's happening and how players are reacting to each individual thing that's happening on the map. When X happens, X happens, X happens. The domino effect falls off of everything that happens in Counter-Strike, and they need to understand how that happens and have a mental map and a mental image in their mind on how to adapt to that. So these guys are super important. Now, the other guys, you're going to have your Opper, like I said before, and then you're going to have your other two guys who, again, cannot be afraid to die. They're usually the first point of contact. They understand that they're usually going to die no matter what they do, and that their job's to take one out, or if they don't take one out, then for their teammates to be able to trade frag and put their teammates in a position where they can trade frag, either through good communication, making it so the other person is hard to hit you, etc., etc. Good communication, as in you're telling your teammates exactly where they are, so that you can relay that to your teammates, and they could quickly capitalize off your death and get a frag. So those two guys, like that was like me and Steel. AZK is one of those guys. Skadoodle, if he's rifling, will be one of those guys. He doesn't give a fuck. He'll run in and be a boss. Shoxy can do that. Freiburg, Exist. Let's see who else on Envy. NBK doesn't give a fuck. He'll do it. Kiyoshima will. And Fnatic, every single one of their members will. Like, seriously, JW will. Flesho is probably the biggest lurker on that team, but even he will. Olafmeister will. Krims will. Pronac definitely will. Okay? And you definitely need 2 to 3 players like this. You can't have 4 players that are like a Swag and Hiko. If you have 4 players like a Swag and Hiko, what's going to happen is, although they're great players, if you want a porch hit and you have 1 guy hulls and 3 guys coming porch, and then 1 guy kind of watching your back around the wrap, all that's going to happen every single round is that they're going to get to this pillar and they're all just going to sit around here and nobody's going to actually go over here. It's just never going to happen. It's going to be team hover. Okay? That's all that's going to happen. It's just going to be team hover. Everyone's just going to be sitting around here, sitting around here. Nobody's going to go here, because once you crossed it here, you have to look left, you have to look right, you have to look here, you have to look graveyard, you have to look K-Stack, you have to look Moto. And you're basically going to die almost every single time. Like, it's extremely difficult to run up porch and get the first kill. And if you have a bunch of teammates who are just really like guys that play off the trades, right? It's just not going to work. They're all just going to sit here, and nobody's going to sack up and go and take the death for the team. And that's another reason why you see so many players with lower stats than other players. Just because they're not put in position to get the kills. Like, if you take me and Steel and we're coming up porch right here, only one of us is going to get the damn kill. The other one's just going to die, like, every single time. If Steel's running sight, and he goes like this, and imagine this is a flash, and he goes like this, and he's running sight, and he comes to here, bam, he's dead. Well, then he calls exactly where they are, and then say I'm here, and I come like this, and I kill the guy because he's blue car, and then maybe he calls where the other guy is too, and then the Halls guy comes out and trade frags on that, etc., etc. Like, only one person, like, almost all the time he's going to die, right? It's just how it is. It's just how the game is. And you just have to sack up, understand that you're going to die, and that all the people on Reddit and HLTV are going to be fucking retarded, because they're going to be like, oh my god, man, that guy was 2-11, he fucking sucks. No, he doesn't suck, he's just put in a fucking impossible position. It's not his fault that he's the first one up porch. If he didn't go up porch and everybody just sat right here, you know what would fucking happen? They'd counterflash, you'd sit here for 10 seconds, all your smokes would dissipate, you'd have no nades or flashes, they'd have 4 people here rotating, and you'd be completely fucked, and you'd lose the round almost every single time. Because that's just how it is. It's just how Counter-Strike is. Alright. Anyways, I hope that gives you guys a better idea of how to build a team, and why some teams need certain players in order to succeed, and why, if you have too many of the same people, it's generally not going to work out. And another thing on that note is that it's a lot easier to find people who are willing to bait other people and and get the trade kills off of them than it is to find people who are willing to just sack up, run in, die, and hope their teammates are able to capitalize off their deaths. Alright guys, it's been days from NetcodeGuides. Never mind, there's one more part to this. My bad. There's one more part to this. Excuse what I just said. We're going one more part. So before we end this video, we're going to talk just a little bit more about why it's so difficult to become comfortable. And I'm going to give the example of being the Halls guy in Inferno. So if you're the Halls guy in Inferno, say you're coming out of Halls. If you're new to this and coming out of Halls, I mean, look at how many angles there are. Graveyard, this spot. A lot of people just peek right there. Here, here. When you come out Halls, you have to look here, here, site, here, haystack, emo, dark spot. When you come out here, they could be here. Then when you jump out of the Halls, they could be here. They could be under the blue truck. Like, there's so many different angles and so many different spots, right, that you have to look at. And it's extremely difficult to come out of Halls. So being the Halls guy in Inferno is something that takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of effort. And it's not something that comes easy, okay? So now, say you just get your spot changed to Halls on Inferno. You're, I don't know, Olafmeister. I don't think he was a Halls guy in Inferno. On LGB, maybe he was. But anyways, he goes to Fnatic and he goes to Inferno, and they say, you know what, you're going to be our A-Halls guy on T side. All right, you're going to be our Halls player. So now all of a sudden, I bet you the first like a month that he was in Halls, he probably wasn't very good at it, because it's a really difficult spot to get great at, right? Because of what I discussed, there's so many different angles. Now you have that's just when you're coming out. Now you have to know all the reads of what you need to do when everything that your team is doing is going on. So say you take control of Halls on Inferno, and now your team wants to do a middle control. Okay, they're going to smoke off left side mid, and then they're going to come out boiler and middle and fight towards porch and take control of the middle. Now all of a sudden you have to know, okay, do I want to get to the end of Halls? And then that way, if they're doing a double porch, then I can come out and shoot them in the side, right? If my teammates go 1-for-1, do I come out Halls and try to make a play and 1v1 this guy? And then if I get the kill, we probably win the round. If I miss the kill, we probably lose the round, right? Do I want to stay over here and go to the boiler, and then when my teammates jump out, I could cover them and come with them and trade kill? Do I want to stay here in case someone's going to peek Halls and flash peek, and then I could, you know, peek and kill them if they do that? Again, there's so many different reads, and that's just one option. That's just if your teammates are taking mid control. What about when your teammates are going back to banana? What about when your teammates are taking arch side mid? What about when your teammates are doing a fake, etc., etc.? There's so many different options that you have to get used to. So it takes this time. It takes a very long time. And that's why Counter-Strike is one of those games where teams get better over time, because these players need to get comfortable at their spots over time. And there's other options too. There's so many different options that you have as the Halls guy, and you have to know how to react to all those different options of what your team's doing, and not only what your team's doing, but what the team you're playing against likes to do. So if he's playing against Nip, he knows Forrest is usually watching the Halls. So if he comes to the end, he might have to be in a gun battle and 1v1 him. So maybe he doesn't watch the Halls. Maybe he goes boiler instead to help kill that porch guy, right? Maybe if he plays against Envy, you know, sometimes they do a double porch setup, right? Maybe he gets to the end of Halls so that when they're doing a double porch setup, oh, he could come out of Halls and you could shoot him in the back. So not only does it come from your teammates, but it also comes from knowing the meta of what your teams, the teams you're playing against like to do. And that's why it is so damn difficult to get comfortable at this game. And I hope I gave you guys some insight into why this happens, why it's so difficult to build teams together and whatnot. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something here today throughout all my rambling. This has been DaZeD from NetcodeGuides.com. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.